Alright, today we're doing trigonometry, and our objective here, we have these three objectives, and over the course of this video and another video we'll take care of them all. Today we're doing 1 and 2. First is just to set up our trigonometric ratios. Okay, that's at SOHCAHTOA. We'll write it down in the next slide, don't worry about it. 2 is to use those ratios to find missing side lengths on our triangles. Okay, and then of course number 3 down here is to find unknown or missing angle measures. Again, another video. Okay, so here are the shortcuts to help us to set up our little equations depending on which angle we're talking about. We're going to use this SOHCAHTOA, and each of these guys just kind of sets us up as a fraction, something we're going to divide, that sort of thing in the future. So the first one's first over here on the left hand side. You notice both triangles are the same. The only thing different, this guy talks about the sine, cosine, tangent of angle A. This guy of angle B. So we're going to work from the different angles here. We never do it from angle C, from the 90 degrees. Only from these two guys. So first things first, let's set up our angle A. We're going to circle angle A. It means we're going to start here at angle A on this left side. We're going to identify the size. Always, we remember this side here is always our hypotenuse, right? The one across from this little box is always our hypotenuse. All right, across from here, hypotenuse. Across from here, hypotenuse. That never changes, no matter which way our triangle is turned. The other guys then, here it is. Across from the A is our opposite side. Next to the A, right here, is our A, our adjacent side. And you'll notice those letters work out here with our little formulas at the top. H, O, A, O and H, and A, and H. Perfect. While we're at it, we might as well label the other guy. The other side over here, we're doing angle B. So angle B this time. And we're going to identify that, well, you know what? This guy again, hypotenuse, I promised a minute ago. If we're going to go from angle B this time, we're going to go, hey, that guy way over there is our opposite side. Right? And this guy right here is our adjacent. That guy does not like to write. Our adjacent side. That'll help us when we figure out the little ratios in a minute. Alright, so back to the first one over here. We're doing sine. Sine of A, I look and see I need an O and an H above each other. Alright, O above the H. Awesome. I can then easily identify the O as the opposite, the 8, and I can put that above the H, the 10. And I would reduce. For time's sake, I'm not going to reduce. Next one is cosine of A. Cosine of A says A over H. Same thing, so I'm going to do that. A would be 6 over my H, still 10. Following that same pattern for us, we're going to do tangent next, O over A, right? Tangent of A. So I'm going to take the O, that's the 8, and put it over the A this time, the 6. And again, I would reduce these, and it would even convert them into decimals. Following that same pattern, now we're going to work over here, but we're going to work off of angle B this time. So if we're going to do sine of B, sine, we need O and H again, and this time the O is a 6, and our H is still the 10, right? That guy's always the hypotenuse. Cosine, we need, right, now we're doing cosine, we need the A and the H, and if you notice, right, A, 8, H, 10, so I need an 8 and a 10. Last but not least, a tangent, I would need an O over an A, so I need a 6 over an 8. And again, you would reduce these fractions and convert them to decimals, as we've asked on the worksheets. But for time's sake in the video, we're done. Okay, the next step in our process is now finding that missing side. Of course, we were going to take you there. The last examples, we gave you all the sides. You just had to set up some easy fractions. This example, we're clearly missing this side with the X on it. And just for note here, we have nothing over here. We don't even care about this side. Don't identify it as anything. Don't write anything over there. The only thing you want to do is identify which side this is and which side this is. So we're going to do that by circling our 50, because that's where we're going to start. We're going to identify this guy as our hypotenuse, right? Across from this box, my bad. Across from this box is always the hypotenuse. I don't care where it's located. And then this guy over here is on the opposite side. So he's our O. If you remember from before, sine, cosine, tangent, SOHCAHTOA, O and H happen to be our sine ones. So we're going to write that down. We're going to write sine, and I like to write O over H just so we can use it. Next step, write sine, and we're going to put our angle there, our 50, equals, what's the O? X. What's the H? 18. So I took sine of 50, and just took that number 50 right there, and I took our O side, our X, and our H side, and put it down there. The question is, are we going to multiply or divide? This guy, I'll set it up a little bit like it, just so we see, but it's sort of like a proportion there. And if you remember, we would then just multiply these two guys. My shortcut for that is, if the X is on top, we're going to multiply these two. So when I write that out, I actually want to write it like this. 18 times sine of 50. Because you need to put it in a calculator that way, in that order, if you're using an OGT calc. That way you get the correct answer. 18 times the sine of 50 will give us X equals 13.79 when you round up the 13.788. So it'll be 13.79. Sorry about my poor letters. That will be the length of that missing side. And again, we don't care about this side. We're just looking for this side here right now. Eventually you'll have to find all the sides, and we'll work on that. Okay, in this example, if you haven't figured out already, we're going to divide. We still need to identify all of our pieces and parts. So we're going to start with our 67. That's the angle we gave you. We're going to then identify these two sides to save us a little time. I remember that this guy is the hypotenuse, and this guy right here is the adjacent. And if you're looking at your shortcuts, that's SOHCAHTOA, A and H. Those are cosine. So we're looking for cosine. Right, A over H. So we'll write our cosine down. And our angle, 67, equals our A, which is 9, over our H, which is X. And again, my shortcut here is, if the X is on the bottom, we're going to divide. We're going to take the 67 and the cosine, 67, and just sort of push it underneath there, and you end up dividing. I will do a little work just to show us, just to be sure. In this case, we'll set this guy over 1 if you want to do the proportion method. So 9 times 1 is 9, and cosine of 67 is cosine 67 times X. A little bit more work than we're used to. We would then divide by the cosine of 67 on both sides. And you'll see that it cancels over here, and we're left with X equals 9 divided by cosine of 67. There it is. If you remember the shortcut, that's great. Again, you need to divide it this way. 9 divided by cosine of 67. Once you do that, you get X equals 23.03 after you round. Again, that's the hypotenuse, the missing side, and eventually we'll find all the other sides. Alright, last but not least, just to remind us and show us one last time, there we go, setting us up. If you want to remember it as SOHCAHTOA, that's how we say it in class. You can see the SO is the S, and the O over H, kind of right here is how we write it, the Ka, and then the Toa. However you want to remember it, you have to know which ones pertain to which ones. Checking for some understanding now. We're looking at question 1. What does SOHCAHTOA stand for? Sine, cosine, tangent. Talked about that in the last slide. 2 is real important. How do we distinguish between the adjacent and the opposite sides? Remember, those adjacent and opposite sides switch depending on which angle you're starting with. Do not get fooled by always leaving them in the same place. The hypotenuse stays in the same place. And what are the 2 questions you ask yourself when using trig ratios to solve for unknown sides? Hey, did I label them? And which one goes where, right?